now that we have our player transition set up, we now need to make use of this parameter here through code to determine when we should transition between idle and run using our horizontal input. Now, traditionally, what I would do is I would create inside of the player, I would get a handle to our animator component, and I would do all of the animation code within there. But what I would like to do now is to maintain code readability and make it easy to maintain our program so that if we ever have to adjust animation code in the future, we don't have to go scavenging our player script to find it, but instead we can have a separate script dedicated to the animation of our player. So we're going to create a new C# script here, and this is going to be called player animation. It's going to be responsible for handling all of the animations of our player. And our player script is going to interact with this script here. So go ahead and take this player animation script, and we're going to drag it onto our player parent object. And what it's going to need to do is get a reference to the animator component of the sprite. Remember, we're keeping this object very clean. There's never going to be any components or anything like that on this object. It's just going to be the animations and the animator that control this sprite. So from our parent object, we have our player animation script, and then we have our player script. So our player is going to be handling the code logic, and it's going to be communicating with the player animation on which animation it should be playing. So let's go ahead and look at some of the logic that needs to happen here. Opening up our player animation script, the first thing we need to do is get a handle to our animator component. So we need a handle to animator, and then in void start, we need to assign that handle. So here, assign handle to animator. Now, once we have access to that, we can then begin actually calling on to our animations. So in order to know what animation we're going to be calling on or how to design this script, what is the logic we're trying to do here? We're basically trying to transition from idle to run. So when should that occur? That's going to occur based on this value here, input.getAccessRaw horizontal. So what we need to do is we need to basically say to our player animation, hey, based on whatever this value is, that's the parameter value of this. So we need to basically say anim.setFloat, and we're basically going to take the move and we're going to assign it to that. So to do this, what we need to do here is in player animation, we're going to have a method called run. So let's create a function called void run. And what we want to do is we want to be able to call this function from our player. So here we're going to say void, or I should say move, because we're going to be using this function specifically to transition between running and idle. So let's go ahead and say just move. So here we have void move. We want to be able to access it from the player, so it needs to be public. So public void move. And inside the player here, we're going to need to get a reference to the animator, the player animation. So we're going to have here a variable. So we're going to have a handle to player animation. And then in void start, you're also going to need to get that. You're going to need to assign it. So here, you're going to say assign handle to player animation. And once we have that, we can then type something such as player animation. You'll be able to say player animation dot whatever that public method was, which is move. And when that method gets called, we're basically going to control what animation is playing. So to do that, though, I need to know what this value is, because that's what we're using. We're using the move value. So our player animation is going to accept a parameter here called float, and it's going to be move. Okay? And in here, this is where our animation code is actually going to go. So once we have access to our animation or our animator component, we're basically going to be saying it's anim set float, and then you're going to grab the move and you're going to assign it to whatever this move is. So it's going to be that the move here in the animator component or the view is going to be mapped to the move that we receive from the player, this guy. So anim set float move, and we're going to use move as the value. So if you're familiar with animation scripting, this may be pretty easy for you to do. If you're not familiar with animation scripting, you can check out the challenge review on how I'm going to solve this. But also you should check out the Ultimate Guide to Game Development with Unity, where we cover a well-rounded introduction to Unity and creating animations and scripting their behavior. So I will see you guys in the next video. Go ahead and create the transition between idle and run while keeping the logic for the animation solely in the player animation class. I'll see you guys in the challenge review.